Welcome back to the channel. We are going to do Lith again. I think this must be the 5th video on Lith. I've got a whole series on Lith. It's a really wonderful process. If you've got your own darkroom, I would definitely recommend doing Lith if you've got some old papers. And I'll go through those old papers in this video, and I'll show you just by changing some parameters or changing paper what kind of different tones and different looks you'll get. And it's a very simple process and a wonderful, beautiful process to actually get into. It's highly addictive and very enjoyable. It's not too hard to actually get into it. You just need to start with something like Easy Lit, which I've talked about in the past. I'm going to go through some of the images I made with my Bronica in Italy. So let's get going. So I'm actually in Chioggia, which is called Little Venice. It's actually not far from Venice. And here, this made a really beautiful black and white image. Just these strange objects that they put in the sea. Not too sure what they are, but I figured they would make a really interesting picture. And I made a nice shot with these guys on my Bronica. The old cement mixer has been here since I was here the last time, a couple of years ago, so I think I'll make a good photo. So I'm kind of going around looking for images to collect, and that's what you do before you get into the darkroom, is collect what you want, your resources and your bits and pieces, you know, to make what it is. So I'm back on this bike. I love this bike. This is my daily commute bike. And I just put it in the car and drove down from Austria to Italy. Hoping to do a lit session over the weekend, and what I've learned with kind of when you don't have as much time as you'd love to have is to kind of do your preparation. And I chose my negatives that I want to do. I want to do some more Tura paper. I want to redo this one again. I have a little scratch here. I really like this one, but so it's a lovely negative. I like the grain that came out in it, but I have a scratch here which I can't really repair, maybe with a pen or something, but I want to do that one again. So what I tend to do is I choose the papers I want to work with, and I have this really old Ilford paper which is marvelous, and this box of Tura, because quite a lot of Tura paper I actually have, and this lits super fast. This lits within about 3 minutes, which is really incredible. This lits in about 5 to 6 minutes. Some other papers will lit in, you know, anything from 5 minutes to half an hour, depending on what's in the paper and the properties of that paper. That's the beauty of lit. You never know what you're going to get. You can see some of my papers here. Some really nice old. This one really is incredible. This is Bronica silver. I guess that's from the 60s. There's some, this little one here. This is from East Germany. These are old from the 90s. All these old Ilford papers. This one is incredible. Those two are old Austrian companies which no longer exist, or maybe they're German. Another one over here. And then I've got a couple of more drawers as well. They're just what I kind of work with and grab. Yeah, this is also very nice, and there's a big box of Agfa there. That's really a great paper to work with as well. Not as litable or as it's a really interesting one, that depending on I haven't really mastered that paper. It depends on the A and B mixture of the lit chemicals. And here are all my chemicals over here, and these are my new bottles of lit, but I have a little lit left over here. I probably shouldn't put them on my negatives, so they're in here. So I have all my negatives ready, and I'm going to pretty much expose them onto the paper here with my wonderful Magnifx enlarger. Just take my little dust cover off here, super enlarger, and my timer here, which is an old Jobo timer, which is set to 80 seconds. It's quite long. That's lith process, and my lens under here is set to f8, and that works pretty well. I even write sometimes what my exposure is on the paper on the box here for Lith. That one says ND0. That's my neutral density filter on my enlarger. If you ever buy an enlarger, that's the neutral density filter there, and that kind of reduces your exposure time. Very useful thing to have on an enlarger is a neutral density filter. Even more useful than these filters. The filters, of course, are for multigrade paper, which I tend not to use so much. It's more for the traditional photography and also for color photography if you're exposing on color paper. So what I'm going to do is choose my paper, put my negatives in, and once I expose for my 80 seconds, it goes into an old envelope here, and I just keep everything in there. And that's my first part of my session. That's my dry session, as I call it. And then later on today or tomorrow, I will do my wet session in my darkroom sink here with all, and that's my washer over here. There's a video on that washer. I got my couple of trays, and under here I have my heat tray. Now that are my plate heater, and I put a tray on top of that, and it brings it up to temperature. That I would definitely recommend if you're doing lith process. So yeah, I'm going to get on with this. Expose some negatives onto some really old paper, and I've also some paper down in here as well. You're getting a real tour today, aren't you? So look at that. There's some old Oriental papers. Really wonderful stuff. So they are really incredible Seagull paper, bromide paper. That with Lith, really incredible. Some other smaller papers, some Kodak, Forte, also really good one to Lith. I'm going to actually take that one out because that one I'll get good results. Even damaged paper like something like that will Lith, so don't throw it out. And now these beauties down here, you see, it just goes on and on. These are Swiss papers. I talked about those in a previous Lith video. And all those old papers will keep for a long time. They're well from the 60s, but they Lith so well. And yeah, there's another one here from East Germany. I'll just take it up and show it to you. I haven't tried that. I guess it will Lith pretty well. And another one I've never ever tried. So I tend to buy these in job lots. Beautiful old logos like this one here. That's from Berlin, I believe. A lot of these are old Berlin papers. Yeah, there's another one here. Gee, this is... Yeah. So, they're getting harder and harder to get your hands on these old papers. But they're definitely worth it. So I'm going to be shooting on this guy. Never shot on Berfolot. Oh, wow, what is that? Okay. Looks like a paper that could be used. And this one, this is definitely very litable, I would imagine. Anything that's made in the 90s usually will Lith. These are all tends to be fiber-based papers. So that is quite a lot of stuff to Lith. And I even have some old linen paper. That's quite nice. And recently Gabor gave no, not Gabor, actually Georg gave me this. This is actually 13 by 18 negatives. So, but they are, looks like autochromatic. So autochromatic, you can see it here. It's a Czechish. It's in Czech. I think it's FOMA. Yeah, it's FOMA. So that you can load up in the darkroom under red light into a pinhole camera, into a negative holders, whatever under red light. So because it's only responsive to blue and green light. Not sure what I'm going to do with that, but yeah, all that old stuff lasts a long time. More modern stuff tends to. There's another one, Forte. Yeah, that's. And we have another drawer down below, but yeah, you've seen enough. So that's today's little lit preparation session. Okay. A good friend of mine, Abby, and I decided to do an ice bath course. I took along the Bronica to make some portraits.
Just going in with the Proco. You want to go in the GoPro?
I reckon it'll make a nice lit. I'm going to use my grain finder here, and then I'm going to focus it. Also important, just grab this here, is a brush or a piece of cardboard that you flip over to get rid of the dust. Because you don't really want any dust in your paper. There's no paper on here yet, but I just want to get rid of anything that could be. And then I'll put my paper on, and I could also use a piece of cardboard to wave over, just make sure no dust, because dust is your enemy in the darkroom. But when you put your paper in here under your enlarger, it's good to write what type of paper it is, also anything that would be useful that you would need to know later on. I mean, of course, you could also number of them, but when you're doing a lit session, you're using different papers. It's good to have a record of what you actually did with each of your sheets. So that's what I will do. So I'm setting up my easel here. I've got a bit of a black line here, so I need to move that a little, or open it up on top of the enlarger. So yeah, these are from my, you won't be able to see that. These are from my Bronica ETRSi 6 by 4.5 medium format camera. Well, that was hard. So I have, let me just see, 16 pages prepared. Excuse my writing, I've been writing in the dark. Wow, about 7 different papers. Let's go over to the darkroom, or the darkroom sink. Here I have my Lith developer in here, and it's 2 liters of water with 40 milliliters of A and 40 milliliters of B and 80 milliliters of old brown. That's from my last lit session, and I just put that in an old container. And then I have my stop, my fixer, and my washer going. There's a video on that washer, how to make that yourself. So I'm ready to go. So I'm going to turn off the light. Got my prints in here, 16 of them, and we will start developing them, and hopefully we get some good results. So here's the end of the lit session. This one turned out really nice. Beautiful colors, nice definition, good contrast. This is one of Tura with Abby in the ice bath. That turned out really nice. Looks really great. You can see this paper here. This paper is well and truly damaged. This is also damaged. You can see it here. For turning up and down. That's a landscape as well, but it somehow works pretty well. I don't know what happened here. That's pretty much gone. But this guy, look at that. That's a beaut. That's a lovely one. That came out really nice. Another one of Abby in the ice pack. Different kind of shade. I just did 2 to just try different exposures. Another one from Italy. This is on Ilford paper. That's the details lovely on that. So all in all, pretty happy with the results. Even this crappy old paper, which I think that's going to be quite interesting. Those 2 are okay. They're nice go. But that don't know if that's any use for anything. But certainly this paper is really litable. Yeah, this was another one I did as well. I'm not too sure. That was at the end of the session. I've got to check what paper that is. The iris there. That looks a bit damaged. But another one with wood. So I did about 16 prints, quite large prints, between 25 and 30 centimeters and 18 by 24 as well. There's another one in the washer here that will take a while. Just take that up, and that's of the cement mixer. That one came out very nice as well. Yeah. So these two papers I added to my lit session. This one was fairly damaged, but some nice results. Quite grainy, but usable, definitely usable. This is not so usable as lit. It is too far gone, too damaged. Yeah, I might have another go at it, but wasn't up to. It was okay, but this was definitely usable. Let me get the other one down here. This Tura one came out superb, really good. While the Agfa Record Rapid performed really nice dark tones and moody, so that's definitely worth litting with, I have to say. And the last one here, or actually, yeah, this one, Umbrano by Leonard. Where was this? From Hamburg. Okay, this is very nice, very litable, lovely tones in that. And yeah, you probably know I've been using this one quite often, and that performs whether you do traditional prints or you do lits. So quite a number of papers that I lit it with. Tura, Agfa, Lenara, how do you pronounce that? Leonard and Ilford, and then the other two old German papers, which I don't know. I don't know if I would use that one again, but these guys definitely well worth litting with. So any of those old papers that you find, but the biggest surprise is that Tura. That just keeps performing really well. This is a known classic for Lith. These Ilford, that's a mixed bag with Ilford, and these unknown brands that you just find that are, if they're still boxed up, usually lit very well. That's probably from the 70s. That's somewhere between 80s, 90s. That's definitely 90s paper, but that's in incredible condition. That Tura, also a German paper. Yeah, had a really good lit session. Now that all the prints are dried, I'm going to compare some of the prints and talk about some of the variables that you can change in the lit process. What's really interesting, on just one paper, the Tura Excellent paper, the different exposures from f4 to f8, you'll notice how the tones of the image have changed for the image of Abby in the ice bath. This is another variant in the lit process. Paper, exposure, how you mix the chemicals, it's incredible. Another thing you've got to take into account is the dry down. This is when your prints are drying maybe in the next day, over 24 hours or even 48 hours, that the tones may get darker or change completely. In this case, it's got even redder on the Lenara paper from Hamburg, an incredible, beautiful old paper. In this comparison, we just changed the paper. The exposure is exactly the same, the image is exactly the same, but you can see it's a totally different outcome. Really depends on which paper you use. The latter one was the Brome Silver. I've used this one in the past in some of my other lit videos, which you can check out in the series. Probably one of the most exciting things about lit process is finding a paper that's really old and it's probably in a terrible condition, but often these papers give really interesting results. So definitely recommend to look for those old papers that are really old, not worry about what condition they are in. Of course they will not work for a traditional print because they'll probably be so damaged, but however in the lit process they often are a real winner.
I often get questions about Ilford paper. Not all Ilford paper is litable. The older, the better. That's the general rule. This may be true for Ilford papers, but some of the Forte papers, the modern ones, are litable. However, I like to stick to the old classics like the Agfa Record Rapid. This usually lits pretty well. That's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed this lit session number 5, I believe. A lot of different papers, a lot of fun in the darkroom. I really enjoyed making this video, making these prints for you guys. Let me know down in the comments if you're doing lit, if you've got any questions. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Yeah, get out there and do some lit, or at least do some analog photography, shoot some film, as they say. Okay, hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the little notification bell, and hope to see you on the next video. Goodbye.